Hello all and welcome back. In today's video, which is the first part of the series Error Handling and Debugging, we will be covering error handling. We'll also understand what exactly is an error and how to proactively handle it. Error handling is very useful and a very significant mechanism of any programming language, and hence it's a very good practice to include that in your code. When you do not include error handling, the code does not know what to do when an error happens. And if you have created this application, let's say for a client, and an error happens, the code will break. The client will be clueless as to what exactly happened and what should I do next. So you should always include error handling. When error handling is included, the code exactly knows what to do. It will show you the proper error message and exit gracefully. So like I said, it's a very good practice to include error handling in your code. So let's go ahead and understand what exactly is an error handling. We will now launch the Visual Basic Editor. If you're not sure what Visual Basic Editor is, then I recommend watching the video Visual Basic Editor and Introduction. We will now press the shortcut key Alt F11 to launch the Visual Basic Editor. Once the Visual Basic Editor is launched, right-click on the VBA project and under Insert, click on Module to insert a module. Errors can happen when you are either writing a code or when you attempt to run it. When you're writing a code, the error that happens is called a syntax error or a parsing error. Now, if you remember the video Visual Basic Editor and Introduction, I spoke about the Editor tab in the Tools option dialog box. You can access that by clicking on Tools and then clicking on Options, and this is the Editor tab. If you remember, in that video I spoke about auto syntax check and require variable declaration. If you are learning Visual Basic Programming from scratch, then I recommend checking both of them. And if you're comfortable with Visual Basic Programming, then simply check on the require variable declaration. I would recommend watching that video to understand both of these in detail. If the auto syntax check is checked, you will get a pop-up when there is a syntax error. Otherwise, the VBA code will get highlighted in red color depending on what is the setting in the editor format tab. So if you look at syntax error text, the foreground is red. So if you're not sure what these tabs are for and how you can tweak the settings, then I highly recommend watch that video first and then come back to this video. Right, I'm going to close this. I'm going to now declare a procedure called sub syntax error example. If you remember in the video variables, constants and data types, I mentioned how you can declare a variable using dim. The syntax is dim variable name as data type. So if I declare a worksheet object, it would be something like this. Dim ws as worksheet. Now, if I remove the word as, see what happens the moment I move the cursor to another line. The code turns red because Visual Basic Editor found an error while parsing the statement. Now let's run this code with syntax error. Click on Run Sub User Form button or simply press the shortcut key F5. When I run this, see, I get a message saying compile error, syntax error. I'll click on OK and I'll stop the code. So these kind of errors are called syntax errors or parsing errors. You can also check if there are any syntax errors or parsing errors by clicking on the debug menu and then clicking on compile VBA project. See, you get the same message box. So I'll click on OK. Now let's understand what is a runtime error. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to runtime error. Okay, and I will delete this. Let's say we want to divide and multiply two numbers and then show the result. So let's declare two variables. Dim numerator as long. Dim denominator as long. Let's assign some basic values. So numerator is equal to 25 and denominator is equal to 5. Now let's perform division and multiplication on these numbers and show it in a message box. MSG box division ampersand numerator divided by denominator. Similarly, let's also do multiplication. And we are done. Now when you run this code, you will notice that the division is 5 and the multiplication is 125. So it works as expected. Now let's change 5 to 0. So the denominator is now 0. So we will now divide 25 by 0 and then we will multiply 25 by 0. Let's run this and see what happens. The moment I click on run, I get an error which is runtime error 11, division by 0. You can never catch these errors by clicking on the Excel-VBA project under the tools menu because these errors, they happen at runtime. The runtime error halts the execution of the program by breaking the code, and because of this, any code after the line causing the error does not get executed. Often applications which have no or poor error handling leave the users confused as to what exactly happened. They are clueless as to what they are supposed to do. For example, when this screen is presented to a user who does not know coding, he will not know what to do. He'll only have either end or debug or help. The help is not useful to the user at the moment. The debug is also not useful because let's say the user does not know what to do with the code. The only thing is to click on end. And if you click on end, it'll just stop the code. And the user is just left high and dry. Now, how can we ensure that when such errors occur, we get an alert, but the code should not break? It should either process the next line of statement or exit the procedure gracefully. For this purpose, we have the onError statement. This statement enables an error handling routine, and in some cases can also be used to disable an error handling routine. We will cover about that later. Now let's understand the syntax of onError statement. The onError statement syntax can have any of the following forms. onError GoTo line. onError resume next. onError GoTo 0. Let's understand onError GoTo line first. The line argument is any line label or line number. The specified line must be in the same procedure as the onError statement, otherwise a compile time error occurs. Line label can be any combination of characters that starts with a letter and ends with a colon. Line labels are not case sensitive and must begin in the first column. And a line number can be any combination of digits that is unique within the module where it is used. Line numbers must begin in the first column. We will understand this by taking an example in a few moments. The next form is onError resume next. onError resume next specifies that when a runtime error occurs, ignore it, and the control goes to the statement immediately following the statement where the error occurred, and the execution continues. onError GoTo 0 disables any error handler which is enabled in the current procedure. Let's understand these with examples. Let's first understand using onError GoTo line using line labels. We will take this particular example. Let's say when the error occurs, I want the code to move to the specific line. In this case, I want the code to show me the multiplication and not break the code. So what I will do is I will press the enter key here and I will declare a line label. So let's call it go here and then followed by colon. The moment you type colon and press enter, you'll see it becomes left aligned. That's my line label. Once the line label is set, I will enable the error handling at the top of the procedure, but inside the procedure. So what I will do is I'll press the enter key here and I will type onError GoTo go here and I'm done. Now when I run this, see what happens. I get multiplication 0. If you noticed, there was no mention of any error at this line. We did not get any pop-up message like we got earlier. The similar can be achieved using line numbers. Adding line numbers is very simple. Simply add line numbers in a sequence. I'll show it to you how, or simply use an add-in like MZ tools. I will cover the MZ tool add-in later on. The add-in is useful if there are a lot of lines in your procedure, unlike this particular code where we have 7-8 lines. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start giving numbers. The line labels have to be added on the left side, and you can ignore the statements which have the dim statement or which are line labels. So let's start. The first one is 10, second one is 20, 30, 40 and 50. And I'll delete this line label and I will change this to 50. So what I'm doing here is I'm telling the code that in case an error happens, then directly execute line number 50, which is this message box. So let's run this and we get multiplication is 0. This is the same result as we got earlier, where the code did not give any error on this line and directly executed line 50. Now let's understand what happens when you ignore the error using onError resume next. But before that, let's remove these line numbers. And I'm going to change this line to onError resume next. Now when I run this, see what happens. I get multiplication 0. While you may consider this a good option to handle the error, but trust me, it is not. OnError resume next, if used this way, is like telling the code to shut up and continue. This may give you unexpected results, and you may not even understand where the code went wrong, or what exactly are you doing wrong. Let's consider this example. I'm going to delete this code. Let's say I want to write to cell A1 of sheet 2. So let's go and add a second sheet. Now the sheet has been added. Let's go back. The code that I will now write will type hello world to cell A1 of sheet 2. So I will declare my worksheet object dimws as worksheet. And then I will initialize the object set ws is equal to this workbook dot sheets sheet 2. And then I will type ws dot range A1 dot value is equal to hello world, and we are done. Now let's run this. When you run this and when you go back to the worksheet, you will see cell A1 has hello world. Now imagine you or someone changed the name of the worksheet. So let's change the name of the worksheet to database. So double click on the sheet tab name and type database. So the sheet name has been changed, and I will delete the data here. Now let's go back to the code. Now if I try to run this code, I will get an error, subscript out of range runtime error 9, and that is because the code cannot find a sheet called sheet 2. That's but natural. So I'll click on end. Now let's introduce onError resume next before this line. So I will press enter here. I will press tab and I will type onError resume next. What do you think will happen when we run this code? Let's go ahead and click on the Run Sub User Form button. We have done that. Let's go back to the worksheet. And we notice that nothing is written here. Now this is a very small piece of code. You may or may not identify the cause of the error, but in case there are many lines, then it will become very difficult for you to find out which line is causing the error. And hence you should never use onError resume next like this. Going back to the code. Now let's understand onError GoTo 0. OnError GoTo 0 disables the error handler which is enabled in the current procedure. So now let's do one thing. If there is sheet 1, I don't know whether there is sheet 1 or not, but the code that I'm going to write is, let's say if there is sheet 1, I want the code to write hello world, and similarly if there is sheet 2, I want to write hello world there as well. This time I'm going to rename the sheet 1 to sample. So I go back and I change this to sample. And I'll go back to the code. And now I'm going to change the code accordingly. So I will copy this line and I will paste it here. And then I'll copy this and I will paste it here. And then I'll copy the same line and paste it all over again. This one I'm going to change it as sheet 1. If I run this code, obviously the code will fail because there is no sheet 1 nor there is sheet 2. We have sample and we have database. Let's say I do not want the code to show me any error message if the error occurs on this line. But at the same time, I want the code to show me any error if there are any errors on this line. So what I will do here is I will type on error resume next. And right after this line, I will type on error go to 0. So what I'm doing here is I'm telling the code that if any error happens, then please ignore it. I don't want to see any error message. And here what I'm saying is if any error handler is active at the moment, then disable it because I do not want the code to ignore any errors after this line. So if there is any error on this line, I want the code to show me the error. Before we run this code, let's quickly go back to the worksheet and check if both these cells are empty. Yes, it is. Let's go back. Now let's run this. And I get the subscript out of range error. Now which line is it? Is it the sheet 1 line or the sheet 2 line? So click on debug and it will tell you that the error happened on this line. That means the error which happened here was ignored. So I'm going to stop the code. I also like using the on error resume next and on error go to 0 to check if a particular object is present or not. Let's take an example. I'm going to insert a module. And I will create a procedure called sub check if sheet exists, and then I'll declare my worksheet object dim ws as worksheet, and before I initialize the worksheet object, I'll type on error resume next, and then I will type set ws is equal to this workbook dot sheets sheet 1, and right after that I will type on error go to 0. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to initialize the worksheet object by setting it to the sheet 1 object. Now, if there is a sheet 1, then it will obviously set it. If there is no sheet 1, it will not show me an error because of on error resume next. And then I will type if ws is nothing, then, and then there'll be an else part and end if. If ws is nothing, that means sheet does not exist. And in the else part, I will type ws dot range a1 dot value is equal to hello world. Let's run this. When you click on this, you get the message sheet does not exist and the code does not break. Now, if I change this to sample and if I run this, you will notice that I do not get any message. And if I go back to the worksheet, in the sample sheet, you'll see that the hello world has been written. In all these examples that we have seen till now, we are using on error resume next to enable the error handling. But we are not really doing much here. I mean, we do not know which line is causing the error until unless I press the debug button. What if I wanted a proper error message which tells me which line is the error happening on? What is the error number? What is the error description? And then based on that, I can decide what to do. For all of this, we have something which is called the Err object. The Err object has the following methods or properties. Clear resets the Err object properties to 0 and 0 length strings after an exit, resume next or go to statement. Description is a short description of the error. HelpFile. Now, this property contains the fully qualified path of a Windows help file. The help file property is automatically set by the Err object when an error is raised. The default help file is the Microsoft Visual Basic for Applications reference. The help context is the context ID for a particular error in a help file. The Err object sets the help context property automatically when an error is raised. The last DLL error is a system error code produced by a call to a DLL or external library. That is an API call. This is available only on 32-bit Windows system. The number is the error number. If this is 0, that means no error has occurred. Raise. This helps you generate your own error explicitly using the Err.raise method. Source, the project name from the properties dialog box. You don't need to know all of these at the moment. We will use the relevant ones using an example. Let's insert a new module. I'm going to create a procedure called sub error details. I'm going to take the same example that I took at the beginning of this video. We will declare two variables, numerator and denominator, and let's say we want to find the division of the numbers. So I will press tab and I'll declare my variables. Dim numerator as long, dim denominator as long. Let's again assign basic values. We'll assign 25 to numerator and 5 to denominator. And then I will type MSG box division ampersand numerator divided by denominator. Now let's also declare a line label, which is go here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type enter, go here, colon, enter. And on top, I will type on error, go to, go here. In go here, now what I want to do is I want to find the error number. What is the error description? And I also want to point the user to the relevant help file and the context ID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type MSG box error number ampersand Err.Number ampersand, and then I will use VB new line ampersand, and then I'll use the line continuation character. I'll press tab so that everything looks presentable. Error description ampersand Err.Description, and then I'll copy this again from here and I will paste it here. Let's say I also want to inform the user where exactly is the help file, the proper path to that file. So I will type more info available at ampersand Err.HelpFile. And then I'll copy this and then I will paste it here and I'll press enter. I also, let's say, want to show the help ID. So I will type help ID ampersand Err.HelpContext, and we are done. Now one more thing before we run this. I do not want to see this message box if there is no error. I mean, it's really pointless if this shows me the correct answer and then suddenly it shows me this message. It will simply confuse the user. So what I will do here is I will type exit sub. If there is no error, this message box will show me the right answer and then it will exit gracefully. If there is an error, obviously it will not show me this message, it will directly show me this message because of on error go to go here. Let's run this. And I get division is 5 and the code ends. I do not see this message box. Now I'm going to change this 5 to 0. So obviously there will be an error message. Let's check it out. When you run this, you get error number 11, error description, division by 0, more info available at, and the path of the help file. It also shows you the help ID. Let's click on OK. This is much better. Now we are getting somewhere with the error. However, I'm still not happy because I do not know the exact line where the error is happening. Obviously, this is a small piece of code, so I know where exactly the error is happening. But like I said, imagine if there is a lot of lines in your procedure, then how will you come to know? So now I'm going to share something which very few people are aware of. It is called ERL. The ERL returns an integer indicating the line number of the last executed statement. If there are no line numbers in your code, then it returns 0. And if you number your code, then you can get the exact line where the error occurred. So let's test this. Like I said, you can either add the numbers manually or use an add-in. I'm going to use an add-in just to save time. So I'm going to select this procedure and then I'm going to click add line numbers. And the lines have been added. I will add one more line to this code. So I will copy this and paste it here. And then I will type error happened on ampersand ERL. Now let's run this. I get the error number, the error description, the help file path, the help ID, and look what we have here. Error happened on 40. That means the error happened on this line. So now I know exactly which line is giving me the error. Isn't this great? I simply love ERL and I always use ERL whenever I'm handling errors in my code. While this may look sufficient from the point of error handling, but I always recommend a separate follow-up after the error handling routine is finished. For that, we will use resume statement. The syntax of the resume statement is resume 0, resume next, resume line. So what resume does is, if the error occurred in the same procedure as the error handler, the execution resumes with the statement that caused the error. If the error occurred in a called procedure, then the execution resumes at the statement that last called out of the procedure containing the error handling routine. Now comes resume next. If the error occurred in the same procedure as the error handler, execution resumes with the statement immediately following the statement that caused the error. If the error occurred in the called procedure, execution resumes with the statement immediately following the statement that last called out of the procedure containing the error handling routine or the on error resume next statement. Finally, resume line. Execution resumes at the line specified in the required line argument. The line argument is a line label or line number and must be in the same procedure as the error handler. We already saw how resume next works. Now let's understand how resume works. Let's insert a new module. I will declare a procedure called sub resume example. This time I'm going to create a new line label. Let's call it whoa, and let's begin the error handler on top. On error, go to whoa, and in between this we will have our code. So I will type this workbook dot sheets. I'll try to write to cell A1 of sheet 1. Sheet 1 dot range A1 dot value is equal to hello world. So what I want is, when the error happens, a new sheet should be added to the workbook and it should be renamed to sheet 1. And then the code should come back to this line and attempt to write to the cell A1 of sheet 1 again. So this is how I would do it. I will type if Err.Number is equal to 9. Now, why did I decide on Err.Number 9? I'll tell you why. So I'm going to comment this and I'm going to comment this as well because I want the error to pop up. Now when I run this, I get runtime error 9, subscript out of range. That means the worksheet does not exist and hence I'm looking for this specific error. So I'll uncomment it again. If Err.Number is equal to 9, then endif. Between this, I'm going to type my code to create a worksheet and rename it to sheet 1. This workbook dot sheets dot add dot name is equal to sheet 1. And then after this line, I will type resume. What I'm doing here is I'm creating a sheet, renaming it to sheet 1, and then I'm resuming the code. Let's run this and you'll notice the code added a sheet and renamed it to sheet 1. Let's go back and check if the code also wrote to cell A1 of sheet 1. And yes, it did. So this worked. So we saw how resume works. Let me share one more example where I'll show you how to use resume in a different way. Let's say you do not want to go back to the line where the error happened, but you want to perform some other task and then exit gracefully. For example, at the beginning of the code, you set some application properties and then you want to reset them back to what it was and then exit gracefully. The classic example is the screen updating. So let's understand that using an example. In this example, which I'm going to take right now, I'm going to show you how to use application.screenUpdating. This property is set to false at the beginning of the code so that there is no screen flickering, and then it is set back to true at the end. So if I go back to the module 3 code, let's take this example. I'm going to remove the line numbers for a moment. And what I will do here is I will type application.screenUpdating is equal to false. Now what will happen is when you run this code, the screen updating is set to false, and then the code errors out on this line. Obviously it will show you this message box and then it will end the procedure. But what happened to screen updating? It was not set to true. Ideally, whenever you are switching off or on events, you have to reset it back to what it was. That's good programming. So what I will do here is, just before exit sub, I will type something which is called let's continue. That's my next line label. And here I will copy this line and I will paste it here. And I'll change this to true. Next, I'm going to type here resume, let's continue. So what I'm telling the code is, in case the error happens, then show the error message, but go back to let's continue and switch the events back on and then exit the sub. So this is another way of using the resume statement. I try to make my programming experience enjoyable, and hence you will notice that I use names which are very weird. For example, on error go to whoa. Similarly, if I had let's continue, then I can copy this here and I can paste it here. So this is my favorite line labels. I use whoa and let's continue a lot. So if you'll see the different solutions that I've provided across different Excel forums, you'll see that I've used whoa and let's continue a lot. Feel free to use your own names till the time it does not contradict with the reserved names. Feel free to write whatever you want. Another funny name would be something like on error go to oh god, or on error go to damn it. Try and make your journey as enjoyable as possible. This way you will learn faster. This way you will love programming. Time for a quick recap. In this video, we covered error handling. We understood what exactly is an error and how to handle the error proactively. We also saw that there are two different kinds of errors: syntax error and runtime error. We also covered on error statement, line numbers, line labels, and so many other things. We also saw how to use the ERL statement to specifically pinpoint the line which is giving us the error. And not to mention the Err object, which helped us get the error number, error description, and so many other things. If you still have any questions, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, or you can also email me on support@teamexcel.com and I will get back to you within 48 hours. Just a quick reminder, I will be posting 2 videos every week, one on Monday and the other on Thursday. If you like the kind of videos that I'm putting forward, and if you would like to support this channel, then go ahead, watch the playlist, because that's where I have put the topics in a specific order. So yeah, watch them, drop a couple of likes, and if you still have not subscribed to this channel, then go ahead and subscribe to this channel by clicking on the bell icon. And I will see you on Monday when I talk to you about how to debug the code.